Hi, and thank you for watching TargetedWest.com. This is DJ Chris. I'm here in my trusty camper in Lodi, California, USA. The opinions of those on the call are that of their own and not that of DJ Chris. It is the 9th month, the first day, Labor Day weekend, and we have Jesse Beltran with us tonight. And of course, right when you're ready to talk, they squeeze your neck. But we'll be talking with Jesse for a little bit today and get to know him better and introduce him to the work group. We're a peaceful, nonviolent group of people who read books and try to discover more about the synthetic telepathy, V2K, and the synthetic dreams we get. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jesse Beltran. Hello, Jesse. How are you?
Hello, Chris. Thank you, and pleasure to be on your show.
Great. So how are you doing today?
Doing well. Just sort of having a nice, relaxing weekend in the high desert here.
Okay, yeah, I'm in the Lodi area, so I understand. It gets hot here, too. So you have a Mind Nexus live program coming up soon. Can you tell us more about that and where we should go to find out more information about that?
Yeah, you can go to mindnexuslive.com and you can see exactly what we put together. We put a group of expert speakers to bring together to expose the reality of what's really happening in our world today. We have some world-renowned speakers like Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, John D'Souza, who the X-Files was based upon some of the cases that he had brought forth and through his own personal experiences. We have Dr. Rima LeBeau, who was married to General Stubblebine, for those of you who are familiar with his work and what he did. Ben Chastain, who has a huge following, Aaron Kuhn and Tyler Koala will be there. I will be there also doing a presentation and some demonstrations on how covert manipulation works and some techniques and strategies that you can utilize in order to make yourself more resistant to that type of manipulation. We'll also be we'll be demonstrating some recent inventions in part to the late Dr. Duncan. I was working on a couple of projects, and he gave me some insight into a little aspect of that I needed before his passing. But we'll also have some spiritualists there because we like to stay peaceful and positive and elevate our our being, and so that we're more positive and you're able to think more clearly and able to deal with stresses much more easily. But it's going to be a fun event. If you can't attend it, it's from September 27th through the 29th in Tucson, Arizona. If you can't attend it in person, we'll have live streaming. Our goal is to get at least 10,000 live streamers. If we can, it's only $99 for the entire weekend, and you get a year access. What we're trying to do is establish a local place that we can bring people to get testing and have professional help available to everyone, and that's our goal, is to continue to build funding so that we can.
Looks like you need a little bit more volume from the audience. It said from the chat room you need a little higher.
Huh. Is that better?
How's that, guys? Still not loud enough.
Not loud enough?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
I'm not sure what else can be done at this point. Let me see if I can get into the camera in the mic area here and see if I can make some minor adjustments here. Let's see if we can use it quality. Is that better?
Try again.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
That is a little bit louder.
Yeah, that's about as max as I can get right now. And I'm on a gigabyte speed per second, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, it's the internet connection on the host provider of the internet, the hosting service we're using for the video. We'll continue. Go ahead. And Dr. Hall will be there, of course, I believe.
Dr. who? Dr. John Hall will be there? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. John Hall will also be there. Obviously, he's been a pioneer in supporting this phenomenon since its inception for quite some time. But he and Dr. Duncan and the late Dr. Terry Robertson also were pioneers in the effort to at least get this to the forefront to everyone. So now
I read Dr. Duncan's books. They were pretty good. I turned my volume down so people don't get blasted out by me. We're sad to have Dr. Duncan leave us, of course, but we have you to continue some of his work and your work, of course. I was going to ask you, I did ask you about your book. You have a book coming out called Beyond Influence, and you were just talking about it with me in the editing stages. Do you have a general idea when it will be available and where it will be available at?
Yeah, our target is to hopefully at the end of September, because we want to make sure that it's released for the conference. So they're aggressively, it's with the editors, so we're hoping to get that done. So I'm crossing my fingers. But it'll be available in all major bookstores and online, both in hard book format and in ebook format.
Great. Yeah, we'll buy a copy for the TI Book Club, of course, and we can review it and read it as a group.
Good. Anything?
So your book will be out. Well, about the PTSD treatments that you're giving people through your hypnosis. That's an interesting topic. I suffer from PTSD from the telepathy, and I know a lot of other people in this community do have PTSD. The amount of live gang stalking or cause stalking and the brain invaders and the body attacks are all causing PTSD. And you are PTSD treatment through hypnosis. Have you had any luck with TIs?
Well, PTSD in general, through the utilization of hypnotherapy in conjunction with traditional therapy, is very beneficial. The process that we use is obviously we want to know the suggestibility of our client, and from there then we'll do what is called a pre-induction and then an induction phase. And during the induction phase, what we do is create a personalized script based on the goals that the person suffering from PTSD is trying to achieve. For example, if it's from a previous trauma, which most victims of the domestic Havana Syndrome phenomenon or HI phenomenon all have. I have not met anyone who has not been affected by it to this day in my 20 years that I've been dealing with this. And whatever those goals are, we try to establish what the triggers and what the anchors are that cause whatever physiological effects that they have. Usually it's the anxiety, usually it's the repetition of memories that they experience and actually live through again. What we'll do is we'll take whatever that agenda is, and then we'll create a script, and then we'll use techniques like positive affirmations, desensitization, while they're in hypnosis. And the reason that's important is because the subconscious mind is the most powerful aspect of who we are as humans internally. It is non-discretionary. It takes things literally. And so it's important to, to program or get positive programming into the subconscious so that you can have an outward effect. And that outward effect is usually in a decrease in the response affect that are related to any of the anchors or triggers that are created from traumas.
Wow, I had been hypnotized when I was about 19. I was overweight, and there was a clinic near me, and I literally lost 117 pounds just by doing exactly what you told me, the positive affirmations. You'll be going to the beach, you'll look beautiful, you'll be thin, stuff like that. It really worked for me, so that's incredible.
And that's called future pacing. So that's also an aspect that we can do. Future pacing. There's just a variety of techniques, and people don't really realize that hypnosis is not what you see in Hollywood movies. It's not what you see in the state fairs at those productions. Hypnosis was generally created to help people live better lives, and we have to be careful, particularly in whichever state you're in. Luckily, I'm in a state that's very hypnotherapist friendly. You can actually use regression in a court of law in the state that I'm in, which is in the state of Nevada. In the state that you're in, unfortunately, you can't. They do not recognize hypnosis as a legal methodology. They're more concerned about false memories that are being imprinted in people under hypnosis. And we use a technique that does not allow you to plant seeds. In fact, if someone's planting seeds during hypnosis, it is not a good practice, and it could lead you to some high-risk litigious scenarios if you are dealing with someone like that. So if you're dealing with
basically you could have someone who's a hypnotist weaponize it.
Correct.
In a way.
Well, the whole phenomenon of AHIs, the majority of symptoms that people are experiencing or the behaviors that are exhibited have a lot to do with post-hypnotic suggestions. And this is the whole reason why I became a certified master hypnotist with my diploma in hypnotherapy, is the fact is, while over these last 20 years in dealing with this phenomenon and victims and doing our testing across the United States, the people who were most affected were those who were highly suggestible. And those are the ones that we would like to seek out and help them if they need help or want help. But everyone needs help with this phenomenon. But if you're highly suggestible, it really puts you in a bad situation, and where you not only lose your social relationships, you become isolated, you lose your employment, and then ultimately this is why a lot of the victims do end up homeless or end up from place to place with no stability. Stability is really very, very important.
You have a suggestibility quiz on your website. I took it. I got a 33.3 out of 56. So I'm average suggestibility. So you can take a test and find out if you are vulnerable to that.
Correct. And that's a great tool to utilize. And if you do fall highly suggestible, we'll give you a secondary test just to see if they're consistent. Because sometimes, you can be taking a test and you're just having a really bad day. And we're all human beings. We're in and out of different states of consciousness throughout the day. It's very normal for us. And if you're under high anxiety, high stress, these all affect your testing scores. And so we want to make sure that we get consistency.
Very good. In regards to spirituality, you mentioned that earlier in your event that you're providing that. Is spirituality important as a TI when we're in this program?
Most definitely, because the phenomena of the auditory symptoms in the AHI categories does create a scenario where it's important that you understand who and what your internal voice is. And it's important that you know what your internal moral compass is. And when you identify with that and you hone in on that, it makes you less influential with the aspect of what you hear about the voice of God or the V2K phenomenon. Now, that is just psychic driving on steroids. If you're familiar with Ewan Cameron, the Canadian psychiatrist who was funded by the United States to see whether or not you can erase the human brain and re-imprint with false memories that you never encountered or never had, but if they were able to accomplish that, you would believe it to be that you would.
I believe that. I have fake dreams. I have synthetic dreams that make up things, and they do the psychic driving with me by repeating the same things over and over again.
Yeah, and it's all the AHI is, or the Havana Syndrome phenomenon. That's all this is. This is psychic driving on steroids. And that's why it's important to know what your internal voice is when it comes to spirituality. Because innately, we all want to do the right thing. Innately, we all want to live a positive and healthy life. And we want to share those experiences with others around us because we're social beings for the most part. And so that's the aspect when it comes to spiritualism. Knowing that and having an identity with that is so important in dealing with this phenomenon.
Well, I know I started praying after I got the telepathy, so it's definitely true. Yeah. I needed that as some place to go. But this is interesting. So you also have scanned for implants in the past. Do you still offer that as a service?
When I created ISA Act, the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies, and that was based out of Sacramento, that was created mainly for fact gathering. When I first started this, I had met Dr. John Hall in Texas, and he had mentioned to me he was dealing with people that were coming to him with these complaints, but nothing could be done because back then the environment was in the traditional medical environment was that if anyone came and started complaining of hearing voices or any weird sounds, they were automatically railroaded into the mental health industry. And that was the second phase of the victimization that was happening. And either they were put on medication or they were put under this diagnosis. And in our society, unfortunately, the mental health stigma really makes you less than a second-class citizen. You have less rights than animals, which is unfortunate, but that's what was happening back then. So what I wanted to do is to create a way that we can take this tangible data and make it measurable. And that's why we developed ISA Act, and this is why we started doing the RF scanning. Now, typically now, I will only work on a referral basis because number one, I have very limited time, and those referral bases are usually by other physicians within this tight-knit community that we work with. They will ask us to take a look at specific cases. But there are other agencies out there that are doing scanning. I'm not sure if they're doing it to the extent that we do or a protocol that we use. But typically how that works is we'll do a preliminary RF scan in the field with what is called a JM20 Pro, and it will at least detect active phenomena, technology. Now, I have to step back a second. So we can't say that we're testing for implants because that's not what we're doing. When we use this equipment, we're testing for exactly what the equipment is created to do, and that's to test for RF emissions, so radio frequency emissions. So it's not for implants, because that's a big jump when you say you're testing for implants with this equipment. Now, if you come up positive in a preliminary RF scan, then we'll say nowadays it's a shot in the dark. It's a crapshoot. But we'll ask you to get what is called a panoramic X-ray, which are very inexpensive. They're like $75, and you can always get them for insurance purposes. You just go in and say, hey, I just want a panoramic X-ray. I want it for my records in case I had an accident or was in a fire or whatever. They can identify me through those. And so you can get those very easily and readily. More specifically, what we're wanting to check for is the TMJ area to see if that looks clear or not. Then you can get what is called an MRI scan. There are ways to get those done. We don't encourage anyone going to their physician and lying. You want to talk about the symptoms that you are having. And most generally, the symptoms that most people afflicted with AHIs now can easily get one of these MRI scans. If those come up positive or negative, at this point in time, it's irrelevant. Back then, it was relevant because the older technology was much larger to find, and so you could a lot of times see them in these types of imagery. Now, what you want to do after that, ultimately, is we want to get what is called a nonlinear junction scan. And what a nonlinear junction scan does is test for ferrous material. And it will also check for what are called passive implants. And these implants get activated. They have to be activated by a signal to turn them on. And so what the equipment will do is it'll send out an echo to test to see if there's ferrous material detected. If it does, then it'll reflect an echo back to the equipment, and it'll send a secondary echo, which will turn that passive technology on. And then we can get a frequency emission on whatever is being detected on a third echo that's being sent with the equipment. That's in layman's terms. It's much more complicated than that, but that's essentially what needs to happen. Now, if you come up positive on the nonlinear junction scan in those regions, the only way you would come up positive is because it's detecting some type of foreign technology within your person. Okay? Now, the reason I feel comfortable today, where I didn't feel comfortable coming public back then in let's say, the early 2010 through 2015, is because the Havana Syndrome was not accepted until recently. In March 8th of this year, Homeland Security held a hearing related to AHIs and the Havana Syndrome phenomenon happening to our diplomats in Cuba. Now, Colonel Egrin would testify. He was retired colonel who helped federal employees who were either exposed to something that caused an illness or an injury, or had an illness or an injury during their tenure working for the federal government. Now, they would, and he would represent them. And so, unfortunately, right now, our federal government is only acknowledging that the Havana Syndrome or AHIs is only happening to federal employees, but they do say, and their family members. And so their family members are the general public. But they are at least giving those members funding and help. And what we're trying to do with our movement is really have a strategic approach on how we can disseminate this information to the general population in a way that is palatable to them, so they can understand it. And you have to spoon feed them. Otherwise, we run into what has traditionally happened in the past. We have been successful in at least getting certain government agencies to accept that this phenomenon may be real and pass regulations or laws within those city limits, at least to acknowledge where we'd have How they're going to implement it, I don't know, but where we have an environment within the city where they're not allowed to use these type of technologies. Where are we at today? Where I can share with your audience is pretty disturbing. What I'll start with is a case that was in Sacramento by a nurse, and her name was Dawn DeVore. Is my screen up? Let's see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it says meeting paused.
Interesting. There we go. Let's try this.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So this is a case that was, I believe, filed in Sacramento County. This is Dawn DeVore. She was a nurse that worked for the Department of Corrections. And what was interesting about this case, and unfortunately, my understanding is this case was settled out of court now. I just found that out today. But
oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
And her Exhibit 2 is really the smoking gun that I know that this was happening back in early 2012 to 2014. I already know that they were doing this in our public prisons and correctional facilities. Now, I had meetings with managers high up within the Department of Corrections just because I was prodding, and they had trusted me because of a career that I was doing before. Some of these people were my clients. And in that, I would ask, and I said, hey, I know Ronald Reagan was wanting to implant all people that were incarcerated. I hear that there was some white papers going on where they're doing this. Is it true? And they would confide in me that it was happening, but they said if they were ever questioned or were in a court situation, that they would deny that they ever said anything like this. But this is a document that was intercepted by Dawn, and this is called the IntelliConnection. It's a security division of IBM, and it says confidential, limited distribution only, level 9 communication, and this is about a 2020 neural chip implant. And it reads, the control of crime will be a paramount concern in the 21st century. When we must be ready with our security products when the demand for them becomes popular. Our Research and Development Division has been in contact with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the California Department of Corrections, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and the Massachusetts Department of Corrections to run limited trials of the 2020 neural chip implant. We have established representatives of our interest in both management and institutional levels within these departments. So they're actually getting their employees hired within the Department of Corrections just so they can get this into the system. It says federal regulations do not yet permit testing of implants on prisoners, but we have entered into contractual agreements with privatized healthcare professionals and specified correctional personnel to do limited testing of our products. We have also had major success in privately owned sanitariums with implant technology. We need, however, to expand our testing to research how effective the 2020 neural chip implant performs in those identified as the most aggressive in our society. Limited testing has produced a number of results. In California, several prisoners were identified as members of the security threat group. Basically, they want to say they're doing this to protect us. And they were brought to the health services at Pelican Bay and tranquilized with advanced sedatives developed by our Cambridge, Massachusetts laboratories to implant. The implant procedure takes 60 to 90 minutes depending upon the experience of the technician, and we are working on a device which will reduce the time by as much as 60%. The results of implants on 8 prisoners yielded the following results. It says implants served as a surveillance monitoring device for this threat group. Implants disabled 2 subjects during an assault on a correctional staff. Universal side effects in all 8 test subjects revealed that when the implant was set and at 116 megahertz, all subjects became lethargic and slept on an average of 18 to 22 hours per day. All subjects refused recreation periods. Obviously, if you're lethargic, you're not going to want to go out and do anything much. But 7 of the 8 subjects did not exercise in the cell or out of the cell, and 5 of the 8 subjects refused showers for up to 3 days at a time. Each subject was monitored for aggressive activity during the test period, and the findings are conclusive that out of the 8 test subjects exhibited no aggression even when provoked. Each subject experienced only minor bleeding from the nose and ears 48 hours after the implant due to the initial adjustment. Each subject had no knowledge of the implant for the test period, and each implant was retrieved under the guise of medical treatment. It should be noted that the test period was for less than 2 months. However, during the period, substantial data was gathered by our research and development team, which suggests that the implants exceeded expected results. One of the major concerns of the security and the research and development team was the test subject would discover the chemical imbalance during the initial adjustment period, and the test would have to be scrubbed. However, due to the advanced technological developments in the sedatives administered, the 48-hour adjustment period can be attributed to prescription medication given to the test subjects after the implant procedure. So they were creating a way to blame it on the drugs that they were given instead of the actual physiological effects having these foreign bodies put in them. It says one of the concerns raised by the research and development was the cause of the bleeding and how to eliminate that problem. Unexplained bleeding might cause a subject to inquire further about his routine, visit to the infirmary or other healthcare facilities. The security windfall from the brief test period was enormous. Security officials now know several strategies employed by these gangs that facilitate the transmission of illegal drugs and weapons into the correctional facilities. One intelligence officer remarked that while they cannot use the information they have in court of law, they now know who to watch and outside the corrections they have. The prison at Soledad is now considering transferring these subjects to Vacaville, where we have engaged, they're engaged in implant research. Our technicians have promised that they can do 3 20/20 neural implants in less than an hour now. Soledad officials hope to collect information from the trio to bring a 14-month investigation into drug trafficking by correctional officers to a close. So that is a smoking gun. They can no longer deny that this is a made-up phenomenon.
That is an incredible piece of information, and I know from my research through Cheryl Welsh, she interviewed a man in San Quentin who had the mind something neuron duplicator not put in him, but used on him in 1966.
Yeah. We know.
So they've been thinking about this for a while, haven't they?
Yes, they have. And there's a document. It was released in 1994 by the United States Air Force. It's called the New World Vistas. And all of this is completely documented. They were planning this greater than 30 years ago, and now we're in the midst of it. But the problem today is these implants are so small that they cannot be detected by traditional medical imagery. So your traditional MRI scans, your traditional X-rays are not going to find these, and I'll show your audience exactly what we're pulling out of people. Now, this is one of my this is one of my clients. She had 3 implants removed so far. She still has 3 more, and we'll talk about her story here in a second. Where is that? And here it is. So I protect the lab and the physicians and my client's name only because we don't want them getting bombarded And the TI phenomenon can be overwhelming at times for people who are not used to it. So we want to make sure these physicians and labs continue to help us. So this is a collection of 3 specimens, and they were analyzing. They called them foreign bodies because you can't put a name to it until after you identify. And these are photomicrographic images used under EDS and SEM with basically high-powered electron microscopes. And these are these are smaller than the letter on a penny. These are down in the realm of nano size, and these are the nanowires. And these implants will not be rejected by our body. And there's several different types that were pulled out of this client. This was a female, and this is basically what they look like today. Now those little wires are silicon nanotubes that are attached to this tech. And this is what we're seeing. They do exist. This is the patent. This is a report on what they do and why these nanoarrays are important to this nanotechnology. Nowadays, they are now self-replicating and self-migrating, and so the technology is becoming even more advanced than we ever fathomed it could be. It's almost, this seems sci-fi, and most people would interpret it as sci-fi had we not had the proof and the documentation to substantiate what we're doing.
Yeah, and does this also include the chemtrails or geoengineering going on as far as possible smart dust being sprayed on us could be used also like nanotechnology?
Yeah. That, on
wow.
For me speaking, it would be speculation. But I can say this. A lot of the literature and the research that I'm pulling up with the technology does describe them as being down to the size because of these small nano sizes. You're talking nano can be down to a millionth of a millimeter in size and smaller, 10 to the minus 9th power. So it's really hard to conceptualize as a human being, but this is stuff that's invisible to our human eye. You need these high-powered microscopes in order to analyze them and identify them. But the literature does talk about these being small enough to be the size of, I have seen the term smart dust used. But, you know, this is the big elephant in the room. In our scans across the United States, and I'm not sure if anyone else has heard my interviews in the past, on the Pacific coast, the primary victims were Caucasian females, 40s or greater, highly educated, recently single, widowed, or divorced. My suspicion is because going through those experiences in life, you're under a lot of stress. And when you're under a lot of stress, you're highly suggestible. You're easily influenced. So that's my suspicion as to why that phenomenon was happening to that group. Then it went to Caucasian males, African American females, African American males, Asians, and it dwindled down in ethnicity. And it stayed that consistent through the Midwest until we got to the East Coast, and then what flipped were the dynamics of African Americans versus Caucasian. And then up in Virginia, that was a little bit different. That group was all military subcontractors that I was asked to come and see. Now, where I'm going with this is I was asked to go see a group in Stockton, California, and the leader of that group was a music mogul. And this group was all business executives, and they wanted me to...
I'm literally right next to Stockton right now. My mother-in-law lives there.
Yeah. And
it's an odd place to meet.
No, it's not. But I did. And I didn't expect to find anything, but what I was puzzled because I did have a certain percentage of that group come up positive, not in the same way that the people who usually come to me are patterned. This group only came up positive in the right and left shoulders for the most part. And then there was an anomaly where one of the ladies came up positive in her hip area, and I had another person come up positive in their knee area. Now, I asked them if they had anything done there, and they said they had surgeries done. So then the inference goes this. So how are these things getting in everyone? In some cases, according to the Department of Homeland Security, they're blaming it on the Russians. Now, that is true in certain cases, but a very small percentage of what I've been dealing with, because the majority of people, a small percentage have left the country, and so they believe that it happened to them outside of the country. But the majority of people have not left the United States, and the majority of people aren't in security or the Department of Defense or working for the federal government. Not all were. So then the question needs to be asked, well, how are these things getting in them? And for the most part, it has to be by injection. So then you have to dig in a little bit deeper on that topic, because I don't believe that the majority of medical professionals are purposely putting these in people. If you look up Google, what percentage of our drugs are purchased outside of our country, I think you will be shocked. And the answer is...
A great majority of drugs are made in India and China now, I know, and they're not consistent in quality.
Yeah, 90% of our medications are purchased outside the United States. And a lot of them are pre-filled syringes. And now that we know that these things are in the nano-size spectrum, you can literally put hundreds of these in the tip of a needle. Now, what countries have the ability to use this technology or have this technology? The United States is one, Russia is another, China and the UK are the four main superpowers that have this technology. Russia is probably ahead of us. President Putin says that the first superpower to master psychotronic weapons will be the superpower to rule the world. So my suspicion is there's either two things happening. I think we're in an arms race right now, and we're in the midst of it.
I agree.
Is my suspicion. But the other aspect of it is a social engineering experiment, because I have taken... I'm going to step back a little bit. And the reason I say it's a social engineering experiment is because what better way can there be to manipulate the masses by using the laws of repetition, which is used in hypnosis, which is what Ewan Cameron used in its infancy of his helmet experiment, where he was utilizing psychic driving. And now we have psychic driving on steroids, where we know that this is coming from a satellite-based technology. And the reason I say this is because we've taken people, individuals, and this was done in California, miles down underneath the earth in granite caverns, and no cell sites. You can't get a cell signal for tens of miles, and we were still detecting the signal deep down underground in the granite. So the only way that...
You said you went to a special location that had late signals and still got a signal from the person inside the chamber.
Correct. So yeah, I'll talk about that. That's what's called an anechoic chamber. But the reason we concluded that it was satellite was because we were able to take these people down deep into a cavern under granite, which were well over a mile, and we could still detect the signal coming from their person, around their person. So for whatever reason that may be, the only way that can happen is at satellite base. Now, I did have the opportunity to take a group of people to Europe. I was asked to come there by a government agency, and I had to sign an NDA, but we were allowed to take victims that came up positive in a preliminary scan into what's called an anechoic chamber. And not only did we scan people from the embassy there, but we used control. So control meaning someone who doesn't have any of these symptoms, doesn't complain about this, doesn't know anything about this. And so when we scanned them in there, we got 0 frequency emissions. But when we took the individuals who came up positive on the RF scans, we were detecting signals within that anechoic chamber. So the only conclusion you can draw is that this frequency emission is coming from their person at that point. That's the ultimate test that you want to have done. If you can create that scenario, then you have enough data and enough evidence to say there is some type of foreign body that is emitting a frequency, and for whatever reason it's coming from that person. Now we're pulling, I have more cases of these type of implants that we're pulling out of people. We're very fortunate that we have access to a team of talented individuals who are pioneers in finding this technology within a person, and that's how we're successful in at least getting these surgeries done.
Interesting. Would you be interested in speaking with my work group about all we've spoken about tonight in an open Q&A session?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and switch to that mode. I'm going to switch to regular mode, so it'll be a little noisy. So please, everyone, *6 and mute if you're not in. Okay, we're now in Q&A mode. If you have a question for Jesse Ventura, that's a Freudian. Jesse Beltran, please step up and get on the microphone and ask us. Come on, it's now time for Q&A session.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I listened to a couple of your YouTubes today, and all the things you talk about are happening with me. However, I noticed that you didn't speak. If you would speak just for a moment about the gang stalking piece of it, because my gang stalking is more than any I've ever heard of before. It's over the top, and I wondered if you could understand what that piece of it is. Every form of communication that can be given to me is a mimicry, mockery of what I'm doing in my home, in my life, all day long, every day.
So the reason I won't talk about gang stalking, because it was not an aspect of this phenomenon that we could measure. The only thing that we can put to it is that the subjective complaints with regards to gang stalking. And so that's why you will not hear me speak about it. I will only speak about things that we could measure, things that we could go before someone in the science community or in the layperson community and show them the data and the facts. So we have tools that can measure radio frequencies. We have medical imagery in some of the cases that show the implants. We have the nonlinear junction scans that will give us more detail of detecting ferrous material within the human body. So those things are tangible and measurable. So the reason you won't hear me talking about the gang stalking is specifically for that reason.
Well, thank you for that. Next question in the queue. Got a lot of people wanting to ask a question. Someone in the chat room had a question, but someone's up now. Come on in.
I am a victim of abuse when I was in the DOC, the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
I was sort of framed to be there. This was over DUI history. This was back in 2016. I was given chronic microwave and something more intense, which was directed energy weapons. And the part of my brain that manages visualization, the oscillium, I've forgotten.
Occipital lobe, your occipital lobe?
Occipital lobe was just pretty laid waste. I had a brain spect in Chicago in early 2003. And so I have TBI. And I know that I have some implants. I'm now 65, and I would very much be interested in getting scanned. I have a lot of biological damage from the Department of Corrections, and I feel like at some point there must have been some nanotechnology coming through a syringe. And I also got COVID when I was in there. It's like when COVID was first getting on the scene, and they were doing some really funny stuff, like putting 4 women in a cell with other women that did not get tested for COVID, and then the whole cell got COVID. Anyway, I have it's devastating not to be able to visualize, when you want to enjoy a book, etc. If possible, I would like to arrange to be scanned by people you employ, possibly to do this. And
what I do is I do the preliminary RF scan portion. So that's the one I do out in the field. If you come up positive in that, then we recommend doing as we stated, which is a panoramic X-ray and going to your physician with symptoms, not giving them any theory, because once you give them a theory, you're done. Okay? And that has been the downfall for a lot of victims who are most likely misdiagnosed with a mental disorder. And psychiatry.
Yeah, fortunately that has not befallen me. I refuse to go to the ER, for example, during intensive torture scripts.
We need to go to the next question. I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have 130 people here. Let's go to the next question, please.
I have a question. This is Tony Medina calling from Mesa, Arizona. Thank you for sharing your information tonight. Before Dr. Duncan passed away, he was writing a book on emerging minds. Can you give me any idea? Can you give us an idea of what emerging minds is? Because I tried to look it up and I can't find too much on it.
Yeah, Dr. Duncan was very secretive about the things that he was working on. So I would know nothing about the book that he was writing.
Do you know anything about emerging minds, though?
I'm not sure what context he would be using that title under. I don't know.
It's part of a very long book description. I have it in my notes, Anthony Medina. If you go to my Dr. Duncan interview, I wrote it all down on there. It's the full description of the book.
Okay, good. I'm going to catch up on that. Oh, okay.
please.
Appreciate your help. Thank you so
No
much.
worries. Midge Mathis. Midge
Can I
Mathis
ask a
is
quick
here.
question?
Oh, we have Mathis next. You'll be next in a moment. Midge Mathis,
Thank
come
you.
on in. Midge Mathis, are you there?
Hello?
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Who's this?
This is,
Who's this?
This is Jill Weathers. I have a question.
Go ahead. I don't hear Midge Mathis, so go ahead. You're next. And then there was another lady actually before you.
Okay. I can wait. That's okay.
The first lady, come on in.
Yes, I have a question, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to know, can you give a ballpark figure of how much you would charge, and if any of you do and your colleagues do is covered under any insurance, and how would I get in touch with you if I want to set up something to come see you?
Yeah, I would contact the My Nexus Live website and just fill out the contact form. Just,
what was the website?
Mind Nexus Live, MindNexusLive.com.
Nexus.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question, typically I don't charge. Everyone who knows me knows that I've been completely self-funded and I've been doing these RF scans for free. If you do come up positive, though, and you go and do what we asked, there will come a point in time where you'll need to get a nonlinear junction scan, and that is about $1,000. And unfortunately, right now, insurances won't even touch this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Thank you. Go ahead. You're up next, I believe. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I tried to do the star 6 thing, and I just wasn't able. If I can, I have two questions, please. I'm curious about the ISAC. Like, why did it stop? I don't know the story there. And secondly, have you ever tried and were you ever successful at triangulating any of these signals and attacks? And thank you for all you've done. I should start off with that. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do for us.
Yeah, no problem. Well, the reason ISAC stopped is because the whole reason I created that organization was to get the tangible data. And once we had the tangible data, there was no denying that there was a phenomenon happening. And so there was only so far that we could go. There's only so far that we could go with that. And there were some personal reasons why I had to stop that. And I've shared this is what was happening in the community. Anyone who was outspoken and being very effective, usually CPS was sent to your door. And the accusation of being an unfit parent, I wasn't going to deal with. I had just gotten full custody of my son. He was 3 years old at the time, and I wasn't going to risk that. He's now 18, so this is why you see me, to the extent that you see me out being outspoken and with the movement project that I'm doing now.
Thank you for that.
Triangulation, have you ever tried or were you ever successful at triangulating the attack?
Triangulation isn't going to work with this. Yeah, it's been tried. But again, this is satellite-based, and if you understand our satellite technology and how it's integrated with our ground-based towers, it's virtually impossible to trace. So what you have to say is this, because and the federal employees who are experiencing Havana Syndrome was a good way to go into this, is because they were experiencing this. Initially, they thought it was just location dominant, so they had to be in a specific place in order to experience it. Then they started to realize that people were getting in their cars. They were at the grocery store. And so you have to say, well, why isn't everyone else experiencing these symptoms if we know it's a signal? Now, the government's trying to say it's a directed energy weapon. Okay? Well, that's fine and dandy. In very small minority of the cases, that is the case. Okay? But you got to think about it. What is the cost and what are the resources are needed if you had to have as many victims that are out there and having individuals facing a weapon at them? It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense. So what does make sense, and this is how we came to the conclusion about these implants, is there's something unique about the individual. They have to have something special within them, unfortunately, to allow them to receive that signal. And that signal is these implants. And this is why we're pulling them out now. We are that confident that we're now at this point.
My
Thank you
signals
for that. We need to go to the next caller. I'm sorry, sir. Next caller question. Come on.
Hey, Chris?
Is this Midge?
Yes. Hi.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Come on in. I got your message on the text. Go ahead. You're next.
Okay. Hey, Jesse. This is Midge Mathis. Thank you so much for doing this interview and for all that you do. I've been around a long time. Anyhow, you were talking about the nanowires and the nanotubes. Are you referring to the Tesla phoresis when you talk about that?
No, I'm referring to the reports themselves. These silicon nanowires that are coming out of the implants. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, because there is something called Tesla phoresis. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And they also have the nanowires and nanotubes.
There's a lot of research going on in development with this nanotechnology. And unfortunately, I have a strong suspicion that it's probably in the majority of the population at this point. And so this is why, here's the reality of things. The TI phenomenon has not been very effective politically, okay? Mm-hmm. And how I have been successful is to remain objective and utilizing information that the general population would accept, okay? And that's why it was important to stay objective, and that's why it was important to find tangible evidence in order to support our claims. Once we've taken that approach, I've never had any problem going to officials, and I've met with everyone from the Secret Service to people at the Pentagon, Washington, D.C. There's no doubt about what I'm bringing to them is because you can't refute it. Mm-hmm. How to refute tangible evidence that you can touch and feel. You just can't. Yeah, and so that's why it has to be done this way.
Yes, I understand that. I too have been very successful. I've been to D.C. 3 times, and I have spoken to over 300 legislators myself because the information that I have. So I just want to tell everyone too that the implants are so small. They're called quantum dots. So that's the term for the implants that are so tiny. They're called quantum dots, and that comes from a group of doctors that are being targeted that I know. So thank you so much. That's all I had. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
No, welcome, Edge. Next question in line. We're running into overtime, which is fine. This is an incredible show. We have 130 people on the call right now, which will be a total of about 220. Next question in line for Jesse Beltran.
Yes, hi, Jesse. This is Eileen. And years ago, I believe it was in 2012, you did a scan on me with at the Brock Stop in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with Peter Rosenholm. And I was wondering if you did a scan with me before in the past, would I still need a referral?
Okay. We'll have to look in the archives because all of those reports were sent out. You should have received them. Okay.
Yeah,
so just
contact the survey,
go to the website, mynexuslive.com, and just fill out a contact form. Just put that in the question. I'll see what I can find.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay?
And thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen. Eileen is a regular of our work group. Next person in line to ask Jesse Beltran, come in.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Yes. I was wondering, because I know who my attackers are, is the Auburn Hills Police Department. And while I was reporting the things that was happening to me, I've already scheduled for MRI, MRS, CT, MS scan. And but the thing about me is that I do know that they put something in my ribs and in my head, and it relays like a relay signal. So I can actually feel the wave go from my stomach to my head, and as they lock in, it speeds up, it slows down, they can control my breathing. Now, when you said that the X-ray, when I go to get these scans done, which is I got it scheduled for Tuesday, what should I what's the terminology that I should tell them? Like they're saying don't lie to them, which I'm not going to, because as my primary care doctor. But I wanted to get that nonlinear junction scan. I know for a fact where they're located at, because when I first got a CT scan, where I suspected the first chip to be at, there's radiation-induced cyst that was never there before.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I didn't hear that last sentence. There was radiation.
I said there, radiated-induced cyst, where I suspected the implant, the first implant to be at. I know they have one right underneath my rib. Like right now, it's popping up. Like it's popping up due to whatever they say, and it pops up like wherever they say it moves under my rib.
I'll say this: I would encourage you not to say that you have any implants. Just tell them the symptoms, what you're experiencing, because once you go there, you're done. They're going to stop helping you, and they're going to refer you to psychiatry. So, and that's why I tell everyone, just say, if you're feeling some type of sensation under your rib, then you say that. I feel a sensation under the rib. Is it painful? Is it non-painful? Is it, what's the intensity on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it debilitating? What does it prevent you from doing? These are all subjective complaints.
That's smart.
That's what you tell them.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the question. We have to move on to the next question. Next question in line, please.
Hi, I have a question. This is Jill Weathers. And
come on in.
Thank you. I actually have worked in technology for over 20 years, and I was hesitant to do it, but I actually work for a company that has a lot of defense contracts. So I went to my manager and talked to my manager, and long story short, I was asked to take a fit for duty exam, and now I have a DOD doctor telling me if I don't stop referring to Havana Syndrome, they're not going to let me go back to work. So I'm stuck on disability right now. I need a way to prove this. So, I mean, it's frustrating. You know, all I want to do is go back to work. Even though all this is going on, I don't want to end up homeless like a majority of the people are out there right now. So
what part of the country are you in?
I'm in California.
Northern or southern?
Southern.
Okay. Okay. Can you make sure get a hold of me at the website?
I did.
I'd be interested. You did? Okay.
I did, and they told me to come to the show.
This sounds familiar. I will make sure I seek that one out. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
I'm intrigued about that. Okay.
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 So I am familiar. Yeah, this sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, I'm the widow. I don't know if you saw the message, but
yeah,
I'm the widow of.
Yeah, I will definitely reach out to you.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Next question in line for Jesse Beltran.
Hello.
I think we've run out. Well, thank you, Jesse, for the interview. That's incredible. Would you like to stick around after the book club in case people have more questions?
Yeah, I have about, let's see, for my wife, pulls me by my ear. I've got about 10 more minutes that I can answer questions for.
Okay, well, we can go for 10 more minutes. Anybody else have questions for Jesse?
Hi there.
Hello?
Come on in.
There was a gentleman.
Yeah, I have a question.
Tim? Oh, I don't know who you want first.
The one way in the background, you. Yes, you go first.
Okay. My name is Kim. I'm wondering where this location is, or do you have different offices all over, Jesse?
No, I'm based out of Reno, Nevada, and I'm probably one of the only few who does this type of testing. There's some other guys out there, but I'm in Reno, Nevada. And you're what, in Wisconsin?
Yes, I am in Wisconsin. That's right.
Yeah.
And what was the website again? I don't know if I heard it right.
Mind, M-I-N-D, Nexus, N-X-U-S, live, L-I-V-E.com.
Okay, and thank you so much. This is a wonderful program. Enjoy it, Chris, and I enjoy you too, Jesse. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you. Do we have another question for Jesse? Come on in. He still has 4 more minutes left.
Yes, thank you.
Jesse, this is Mark Dawson.
Yes.
Can you hear me,
Mark,
Jesse?
come on in. You're next. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Jesse, whenever we get these non-liner junction tests and these implants that are in the body, when they're in there so long, do they form calcium around it? Like, can you go to get a calcium cardio test done, and where do they receive calcium around it? Does it show up white?
That I can't answer. What I do know is the nonlinear junction scan is going to test for ferrous materials. So it's checking for basically metals. So if you're coming up on the nonlinear junction scan, it's also going to break down the calcium percentages and iron percentages that they find. There's a lot. You're going to want to do also what is called a toxicology. You're going to want to get a toxicology exam, so they can also test for the levels of metals and other materials in your system.
A toxicology exam?
Yes.
Okay. This is what I've done. Have you ever heard of John Kingston?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to John Kingston and I got a non-linear junction test scan. The scan showed up 19 semiconductors in my body. Now, when we say foreign objects and devices, he's calling these semiconductors. Are they as small as you say that they are? Or
nano size, yeah. The examples that I showed you today, we found those from a nonlinear junction scan, and they are.
I can't see anything. I'm on my phone. I'll have to get some more input from Chris to how to get on here and look at things like everybody else is. I'm just going off my phone. I have no image. I can't see it.
Yeah, it's no problem.
But
these things are invisible to the naked eye. That's how small they are today.
Okay.
So you're not going to find an X-ray or an MRI scan to find these. You got to use a nonlinear junction scan and toxicology.
Gotcha. Could you use John Kingston's nonlinear? I mean, can I bring you the test that I got from him and we go from there, or do I need to get another test from you and then you pull these out?
John is very good at what he does. I'm very familiar with John. What I would recommend is getting a toxicology report. So you're going to have to devise a reason with your general practitioner to get this done. Maybe you're not feeling well because you had an exposure to something that you're not aware of. Usually those are the reasons why they would do that.
Okay, now, toxicology, can you spell that?
Toxicology.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, thank you. We got to go to the next question, please, if you don't mind, sir.
Yes.
Next question you're next.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. This is a wonderful interview. Thank you very much. Jesse, are you saying that those with Havana Syndrome have implants and that this isn't a wireless technology? I'm sorry, I joined the conversation a little late.
Yeah. So what I am saying is the federal government's position is that only federal employees are experiencing these symptoms that are associated with Havana Syndrome. What we can say for 100%, as a 100% fact, is that civilians we have been documenting this phenomenon since 2009, 2010. And the symptoms overlap. And I have had meetings with high-ranking officials who are physicians who are covering this phenomenon with the federal employees, and they have concurred that there is overlap. So slowly but surely, we're trying to work our way through there to say, okay, civilians are experiencing this, and we have to devise some type of resources and funding for them to get help. But that's what.
Yes. So I don't know if you heard all that static on the line when you were trying to talk, Jesse, but
yes, I did.
I don't know if that was a perpetrator. Yes, so I didn't hear your complete answer to the question, but I have been diagnosed by a neurologist with chronic traumatic brain injury, Havana Syndrome. So
are you a civilian or a federal employee?
I'm a civilian. I am a civilian.
Can you please call me at mynexuslive.com and just tell me you're the one that was a civilian diagnosed with domestic Havana Syndrome?
Sure. Happy to. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So if I could just ask you, Jesse, I just wasn't clear because of all the static on the line. So we're not saying that those that have been diagnosed with Havana Syndrome, that this isn't a wireless technology. Are we talking about two separate things?
No, it's a signal technology. But it's a long leap to say that you have implants right now. So you have to go through those phases of testing in order to say that there is a high probability that you have some type of ferrous technology within your system. And that's why you'll want to get a toxicology exam, and you also want to get a nonlinear junction scan.
And I have an appointment with John Kingston at the end of this month. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Very good.
You're in the right.
And I'm just wondering, would it be more prudent because of this toxicology report? Is that something I can get through you, or just through my GP?
I know John does really good work, so you definitely want to go see John, and you will try to see if you can get a toxicology exam through your GP if you can. That way, to be covered by insurance if you have it.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. And I'll be in touch with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And this whole get-together is being recorded, so you can refer back to it if you need to. Anybody else have a question as we let Jesse? Oh, go ahead. Come on in as we wrap it up.
I'm one of the unfortunate ones who's already been referred to psychiatry, and I definitely have experienced implants. And how do I get out of the system to get the toxicology test and the nonlinear junction scan?
You will have to. You're in a tough situation. Because the laws have made it difficult for me to work with people who have some type of mental illness diagnosis. So it gets a little sticky because then we have to work in conjunction with whoever your psychiatrist is or whoever your counselor is, and it just makes it difficult. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go outside of those boundaries and obtain a non-linear junction scan from a private individual, and then depending on what those results are, then we'll have to figure out a strategy on what's the best way to go get a toxicology report.
Can I write to people in the government high up like Kamala Harris or somebody with that level of power to declassify the fact that I'm on the list and I'm implanted and that was
that right there is gonna get you in trouble. The minute you say you're implanted without any evidence, you're done. You're done forever. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your question. We need to go to the next person in line as Jesse wraps up.
May
next
I go?
And last question. Go ahead and go, and then we got to end this so Jesse can go enjoy his evening.
Okay.
It's a holiday, of course. Go ahead.
All right. This is Queen, Mr. Chris. Mr. Jesse, this is Dr. Queen speaking to you. I just want to reiterate some of the things that you mentioned in chronological order based on, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I listened to one of your presentations prior to joining this conference call, and I just want to reiterate some of the things that you mentioned in chronological order as far as how to go about getting these examinations done. So the first thing that you mentioned is that one needs to, based on your assessment, one needs to use JAM 20 Pro for the RF scan. The second thing is to get a radiographic image. The third thing is to get a toxicology examination to find out of any type of high-level metals in your system. And then the fourth thing is to, the fourth thing is to get the linear junction scan. Is that correct?
That was perfectly said.
Thank you.
Yes. I do want to mention one thing before I go. Now, I was going to patent this, but I'm not going to do it because morally I just would not feel right about it. Now, for those of you who are experiencing the high-pitched ringing, and that's usually the part that's most debilitating about this phenomenon, we have, through the help of another project that I was working with Dr. Duncan on, he helped me come up with some filters for a circuit board that I was creating. We have created a way to at least jam the 10 kilohertz modulated signal that's coming in to people. And so and this is usually what doesn't allow you to get rest. This is the one that causes you to get fatigue and you get all kinds of different ailments from that in itself. If you guys are experiencing this, I would encourage you, because I know it's going to get out, I will be disclosing that technique. And it has worked 100% of the time, and most recently was, in fact, the person my client who we removed those implants from, he has had that high-pitched ringing for 20 years. And the minute we turned it on, for the first time, and it was very emotional for her, she stopped hearing it. And within 4 days, it was completely gone. She no longer has to even use the device. Now, that's a rarity, but everyone we put it on has been able to stop that modulated signal coming in, and then it allows you to get rest. And that allows you to start feeling more towards the normal side of things, to where you were prior to this happening. So that's really exciting for the community. It's the first time that we're aware of anything that actually works.
Will you be willing to come back to the call again another time and we can talk more about that?
Yes, I would.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jesse Beltran. What an interview. 10 out of 10. Very good.
No problem. My pleasure. Okay?
Yes,
Everyone
thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Yes, we'll be in contact with you soon. Thank you.
Hello.
We're going to the book club now.